Chapter 311, The Scariest Foe. Silver Moon indeed lived up to his reputation of being insidious and devious. And because he was such a hated individual, everyone had long associated him with these two qualities. Back when Bluey's and company were comrades of Silver Moon, they would often praise him for his intelligence and shrewdness. Memories of his days with past deeds resurfaced after Bluey's clash with Dusky Cloud, and he recalled the many comrades he had once fought alongside fought with. Although the guild was widely notorious, with plenty of players bad-mouthing it on their forums, he had plenty of fun back in those days. In contrast, his days were peaceful here in Beishi City, yet he always felt something lacking. "Big Blue, are you crying? Why are your eyes all red?" the brothers around him asked. Why would recalling those days bring tears to his eyes? Bluey's was never the sentimental type. Furtively wiping his eyes, he felt no wetness whatsoever. He turned to face his brothers and chided, "Cry, my ass. We've been up all night, that's why they're red." In fact, everyone's eyes here are red. All of them looked at one another before rubbing their eyes. It was already 2 hours past their usual log-off time, so it was only natural for them to be exhausted by now. Bluey's took a trip down memory lane and began sharing about his glorious days in Y City to the others. His brothers instantly stopped rubbing their eyes and moved to cover their ears. Instead, "Fuck, he's at it again. You've already told us this story hundreds of times. Did I really repeat myself so often?" Bluey's was disgruntled. "It's less than that woman you always mention. You've at least repeated stories about that vast lushness woman for over 1,000 times. Vast lushness is truly a beast. She may be a woman, but she's literally the greatest among us past deeds members in terms of loyalty and strength of character. Back in those days, it's 1,001 times now." His brothers were distraught. Bluey's at least halted his narration after a few sentences. This was because a group of men walked by Bluey's team, and just like them, they all had red eyes. These men were rubbing their eyes as they passed by, looking as if they were fighting off lethargy. "Damn, so unlucky. Why haven't we bumped into that guy yet?" Bluey's spat to the side of the road. Dusky Cloud also spotted Bluey's, instantly showing him his middle finger. "Motherfucker. Why aren't you logging off to sleep yet? None of your goddamn business." "I'm not tired yet." Bluey's also raised his middle finger in response. "Give up if you can't hold on any longer." Dusky Cloud widened his eyes as he brought his men past Bluey's team. "Give up? Have I ever given up?" Bluey's widened his eyes as well, but Dusky Cloud had already walked past him and did not even look backward once. Bluey's turned to face his brothers, asking, "Have I ever given up?" "Never," they answered. Both parties had done the same thing of getting their men to remain in their respective job classes spawn points across Beishi City. Bluey's and Dusky Cloud were currently checking the situation in all the 7 places, so it was inevitable for the two parties to encounter each other on the road. It was as though Silver Moon had seen through both parties' intentions. Instead of heading straight to a log-off point after escaping from the Central Plaza, he had hidden himself somewhere in the city. With the party-wide skill of King's Command and his group of 12 men, it was not particularly difficult for him to make a break for any of the spawn points. However, Silver Moon had already realized the perils of revealing which spawn point he would log off to the enemies. Doing so would allow innumerable players to spawn camp him when he logged back later on. Silver Moon fully assumed he would be facing each of the over 4,000 members of the 10 Guild Alliance, so he did not dare ask for Traversing Force's assistance. The 700 men they had was simply not enough against the full force of the 10 Guild Alliance. If the latter really decided to block his path out, not even Traversing Forces would be able to rescue him. Thus, the safest move for Silver Moon was to secretly make his way to the next city. The problem was, although he had learned from Oathless Sword that their expedition's next destination was Linian City, Silver Moon did not know how to get there. He had regrettably not met any players in Beishi City who had been there before or knew of the way. Silver Moon wanted to test his luck by finding his way there on his own, but when he and his men tried to sneak out of the city, they received quite the fright. Dusky Cloud had apparently also thought of this move and had assigned some men to guard the city gates. Silver Moon lamented his hardships, For although the men Dusky Cloud had placed by the city gates were no match for Silvermoon and his gang with King's command, those men did not intend to fight with them to death and only planned to inform Dusky Cloud and the rest of the 10 Guild Alliance of their departure so that they could chase after them. Silvermoon's 12-man team was made up of warriors or knights and a couple of priests. Each of them had a frustratingly slow movement speed. As long as the enemies sent out archers or thieves, Silvermoon and his men would have no way of losing them on their tail. Their inability to effectively fight back or chase off these faster job classes only highlighted the importance of having a balanced team composition. Silvermoon was currently in a very awkward position, and he was unable to come up with a way to extricate himself from it. On the other side of the fence, Dusky Cloud and his men were also wrought with anxiety. Silvermoon thought he was fighting against the 10 Guild Alliance's full force, so he did not dare ask Traversing Four Seas for help, but what he did not know was that Dusky Cloud was actually worried about Traversing Four Seas getting involved in all this. There would surely be plenty of losses in large-scale fights, and Dusky Cloud was unsure if his comrades were willing to sacrifice so much just to hunt down Silvermoon. Moreover, he might be the big boss of the 10 Guild Alliance, but no boss in the MMO had the power to compel each of his or her men to become cannon fodder with just a wave of an arm. The other players were no mindless idiots, after all. Currently, Dusky Cloud's thought process was similar to that of a minimalist in that he only hoped to lock Traversing Four Seas in a stalemate. By then, it would depend on whether Traversing Four Seas members were willing to sacrifice themselves for Silvermoon or not. However, Beishi City was about 3 hours away from Y City, and it was currently in the early hours of the morning, the time when the nighttime gamers would log off and the daytime gamers would come online, so the number of players in game was at its lowest. With how tired his men and fellow brothers were after being online for a whole day, it was rather questionable whether he could muster enough manpower to suppress the 1,000 players of Traversing Four Seas. Did Silvermoon ask for Traversing Four Seas help yet? As Dusky Cloud sat in contemplation at a random tavern in Beishi City, the brothers around him were already fast asleep with their heads resting on the table. Fatigue was their scariest enemy at the moment, and everyone decisively took turns napping to fight their inner sleep demons. Dusky Cloud ordered his least favorite liquor to drink to stimulate his nerves, volunteering to keep watch over his brothers. This was a game and not a classroom. After all, what would they do if they were attacked while sleeping on the table? Y City might not have anyone bold enough to attack the 10 Guild Alliance's members, but the same could not be said for Beishi City. Liquor was not something that could perk a person up. Dusky Cloud overstimulated himself as the alcohol got to him. Grogginess settled in and he quickly nudged the comrade beside him. "Fucking get up, it's my turn to rest for a while." That drowsy player stared at him blearily for a moment before rebuking, "Motherfucker, only fucking 30 minutes have passed. Didn't we agree on an hour? Wake me up after 30 minutes, then." Dusky Cloud said no more and just rested his head on the table. Suddenly, a creaking sound was heard as someone pushed the tavern door open. Dusky Cloud vigilantly raised his head and received a shock when he saw the person. "It's you." Who else besides young Master Han would head straight toward a tavern this early in the morning? He glanced over at Dusky Cloud and the other players hunched on the table, asleep. Young Master Han ordered liquor from the NPC bar owner and came over to sit with Dusky Cloud. "What are you guys doing here? We followed Silvermoon the whole night." Dusky Cloud sighed. "Did you fail?" Young Master Han asked. Dusky Cloud nodded his head regretfully. "We had a little situation, and that guy got away." "Oh, what happened?" Young Master Han asked after taking a gulp of the liquor that was finally sent over. Although he disliked young Master Han, it did not reach the level of animosity he had with Silvermoon. Since he was asking politely, Dusky Cloud summarized the situation for him. "So what do you plan to do?" Young Master Han asked. Dusky Cloud told him his plan accordingly. "You're prepared to war with Traversing Four Seas, then?" Young Master Han pressed on. "Only if they don't back down," Dusky Cloud replied. "Oh, they'll back down, that's for sure," young Master Han remarked. "Oh? This is precisely why Traversing Four Seas has spent so much money to hire the top mercenary groups in Yunjuan City," young Master Han explained. "So that they'll be able to fight when the time comes?" Dusky Cloud asked. Young Master Han shook his head. 1,000-man army. Only your 10-guild alliance is capable of beating them, yet you guys just happen to be clashing with them. Hee hee. Traversing 4 seas sure has a pretty terrible luck. Dusky Cloud was about to ask what young Master Han meant when the door once more swung open and someone could be heard saying, "Let's rest up in this tavern first. We'll change shifts later, so everyone can take turns to rest up." Dusky Cloud swore loudly when he heard the person's voice, instantly standing up from his seat. "Are you motherfucking insane, Blueies? Why are you always there wherever I go?" Blueies was also extremely surprised to bump into Dusky Cloud here, immediately retorting, "You're goddamn bastard, why are you fucking everywhere I go? What did you just say?" Dusky Cloud slapped the table. Blueies was about to get worked up when young Master Han turned to face him. Blueies instantly froze up. "Fuck me. You. Although it had been a while, young Master Han's face was not something anyone could easily forget. Blueies immediately recognized him to be the same person that had tricked him into splitting up his troops back in Y City, which provided the 10 Guild Alliance the chance to mount their assault. Were it not for this man, Blueies could possibly still be gallivanting about in Y City right now. "Kill this man." Blueies pointed at young Master Han with one hand as he pulled out his magic staff with the other. The men following behind him also pulled out their weapons when they heard his command. Dusky Cloud stood in front of young Master Han as he stared at them. "What are you guys planning to do?" Despite his dislike of young Master Han, he was still considered as a friend of his friend. Therefore, Dusky Cloud could not just stand by and watch Blueies bully him. Dusky Cloud fearlessly stepped forward as he called his comrades to him. But when he looked back, all he saw were his brothers still sleeping soundly on the table. Infuriated, Dusky Cloud swiftly overturned the table with a kick. "Stop fucking napping and get up to fight." What's going on?" These men woke up with a start, wiping off their drool even as they pulled out their weapons. Their eyes began searching around the tavern for their target as they muttered, "Where is he?" All of them spotted Blueies, yet none stopped to register him as the enemy. "What are you guys fucking looking around for?" "He's right here." Dusky Cloud pointed at Blueies in front of them. "Fuck." All of them waved their hands dismissively, saying, "Stop messing around." Everyone just thought that Dusky Cloud was verbally sparring with Blueies again and his words were merely empty threats at him. Why would Dusky Cloud wait until now to act if he really wanted to fight the man in the first place? Damn you! Dusky Cloud could only watch his men return their heads on the table to resume resting, feeling incensed over his inability to explain the matter at hand. This was when young Master Han calmly asked, "What? Aren't you guys working together to deal with Silver Moon?" Chapter 312, Hurry up and sleep. At young Master Han's words, Dusky Cloud and Blueies showed a supercilious expression on their faces as they openly eyed each other with contempt. "Who's going to do the deed if you two happen to find Silver Moon together?" Young Master Han gazed at the two leaders. "What nonsense! Of course, it's gonna be me. I spent 3 hours traveling all the way from Y City for this, it's only right for me to get him." Dusky Cloud replied. "So you do know this isn't Y City. Silver Moon will be for us to kill if you know what's good for you." Blueies threatened. "Ha ha ha ha. I honestly don't want to tell you this, but Silver Moon doesn't only have those 12 men with him. This brother here included." Dusky Cloud heavily patted young Master Han's shoulder. "There are over 1,000 players here from Yunjuan City with him. May I ask just how many men you have under your command?" "How many men I've got is none of your business." Although Blueies said this, his heart actually beat with trepidation. He had been keeping an eye on Silver Moon ever since his arrival to Beishi City, so he had also come to know that Silver Moon was not by himself. Furthermore, he definitely did not have as many as the 4,000 men Dusky Cloud had under his 10 Guild Alliance's banner. The men he fielded last night were essentially the most he could muster. Losing that opportunity last night, he knew how impossible it would be for them to continue hunting Silver Moon with his leftover manpower. However, players of Y City would rather lose their lives than lose face, so they were not about to back down from a verbal war. Blueies, being a past resident of that city, continued to bicker with Dusky Cloud. The comrades of Blueies finally could not stand this and found themselves a seat each, saying, "Big Blue, you do your thing. We'll take a nap first." With that, They made themselves comfortable on their seats and rested their heads on the table. Fuck, what are you guys sleeping for? Get up and fight with me. Bluey's walked over to drag them to their feet. Stop squabbling already. I'm beat. Finish up your argument quickly and head to sleep once you're done. His comrades were clearly of the same mind with Dusky Cloud's men, firmly believing that these two are merely verbally sparring with each other. Fuck. Dusky Cloud and Bluey's cursed out loud at the same time. You two should really stop fighting here, young Master Han began. Fuck, who do you think you are? Bluey's clearly viewed young Master Han as an enemy, lashing out at him when the latter attempted to mediate. Bluey's had plenty of reasons to hate him, so young Master Han was not particularly angered by his outburst, plainly stating, "What I mean to say is that you guys should go out and duel it out. I have an excellent suggestion here, so if neither of you can find it within yourselves to work together, I can only offer it to one party." Dusky Cloud burst into laughter without a second thought. Brother Han, is there even a need to discuss the outcome? Of course, I'd be victorious. I won't fight with that kid any longer. He's now a boss himself. I think it's best to leave him some face in front of his boys. Quickly tell me your ingenious plan. What he said was rather objective. Dusky Cloud was a thief, while Bluey's was a mage. The latter would often have trouble dealing with the former in a duel. Bluey's was not about to back down, though. Scornfully tossing Dusky Cloud a glance, he said, "What? Scared of facing me in a duel?" Dusky Cloud turned over and looked him in the eye. "Kid, since you're turning down my attempt to give you face, does this mean you want me to take you down a peg? You don't know yet who will take down whom. Don't be stubborn, I'm showing you pity here by helping you conserve a bit of your level. You can still have what's left of Silver Moon after we've had our fun with him. I'll bet you're the one who's trying to conserve level here. Are you starting to value yourself more after being the boss for so long? You're not gonna become the next Silver Moon and abandon your guild when shit hits the fan, are you? You motherfucker, go to hell." Dusky Cloud looked as though he had heard the world's biggest insult. His bloodshot eyes from staying up all night looked as though they would start bleeding at any given moment. Pulling out his dagger while activating Fleetfoot, he pounced on Bluey's. Words were just words, but when it came to fighting, players from Y City were not the least bit vague about their intentions. The mage Bluey's riling up the thief Dusky Cloud was not just out of obstinacy. Bluey's was actually slightly confident that he could win the fight. Seeing Dusky Cloud come straight at him, his empty hand shot out as he muttered something under his breath. With a loud crackle, Dusky Cloud was thrown toward a table and crashed into the ground. While he was in a daze, Bluey's seized this chance to lift his magic staff. Chanting another incantation, a bolt of lightning peeled from the roof right onto Dusky Cloud's head. This was indeed the very first skill a lightning mage learned. Thunderbolt. Bluey's had actually gone down the lesser traveled path just like Goofy, choosing the lightning affinity option that most mages ignored. However, his Thunderbolt was nowhere near as powerful as Goofy's, so that one strike did not injure Dusky Cloud much, allowing the latter to scramble back to his feet in no time at all. That fall interrupted Dusky Cloud's fleet foot, though, and caused the skill to go on cooldown, making him suffer a significant drop in speed. Bluey's utilized the tavern's in-or layout, circling around the tables and chairs. He waited for his skill's cooldown to finish so he could strike Dusky Cloud with another Thunderbolt. The speed of Fireball and repeating Fireball was incomparable with Thunderbolt, making it impossible for anyone to avoid it. Dusky Cloud was angered. He chased after Bluey's around the table. Although he had the advantage when it came to agility, he had no way of utilizing his top speed in this cramped space. His whole body would be momentarily paralyzed every time that Thunderbolt struck him. This was no way to continue the fight. Dusky Cloud no longer mindlessly pursued Bluey's and began kicking the stools and toppling the tables over to clear out space for him to give chase and prevent Bluey's from evading him further. It was still in the wee hours, so hardly anyone else, besides their respective groups and young Master Han, was in the tavern. Bluey's ran about freely while Dusky Cloud followed closely behind, bearing each spell and persevering through every Thunderbolt. "Bastard, your magic defense isn't weak. To think you're still so spirited after taking so many hits," Bluey's continued to circle around the place as he said this. He had already struck Dusky Cloud 4 times. Don't worry, it's enough for me to catch up to you. You're gonna regret not growing an extra pair of legs after this. Dusky Cloud was very confident of himself. The sound of fighting filled the tavern, making it seem very lively. Young Master Han was rather entertained watching this. Quite a few men from both parties were woken up from their slumber by the two's din. They drowsily looked at the scene before them. But when they saw what was going on, all of them got up to their feet and took out their weapons. Fuck, they're really fighting. Some of them even commented with great dissatisfaction, you should have just fought earlier, why must you start things now? I'm exhausted. That's right. Quite a few others expressed their agreement while yawning. The underlings from both sides eyed one another, yet they hesitated over starting a fight. Young Master Han, meanwhile, brought his bottle of liquor and glass over to a corner, giving the two leaders a wide berth. Everyone had a similar experience before. At this point where they needed sleep the most, any activity around them would fail to pique their interest, especially when that nice nap they were having was suddenly interrupted. Right now, they only wished to wrap things up here so that they could go back to sleeping. There was only one way to resolve the matter at hand as quickly possible. Both groups acted at the same time, with Bluey's men surging forward to hold back Bluey's and Dusky Cloud's comrades restraining Dusky Cloud. Stop fighting already. What's there to fight about? Conserve your energy and sleep, instead. Both parties dragged their bosses back to their seats. Let me go. Dusky Cloud growled, declaring, I'm gonna kill him. Kill me? How much HP have you got left? I'll electrocute you to death. Bluey's raised his hand to cast Thunderbolt, yet his men covered his mouth to prevent him from saying another word. Dusky Cloud was treated like this on his end as well, with his men forcibly restraining him to the bench. Go to sleep. Stop this fucking nonsense already. Save it for fighting with Silver Moon, instead. It was an odd sight to witness players from Y City actually preventing people from fighting instead of joining in the fight. To think that all it took for this to happen was these men's urgent need of sleep. If the desire for sleep was not so huge, why else would humans spend over 1/3 of their time on this particular pastime? They managed to restrain Dusky Cloud, but in fear of him running amok again, two warriors held each of his arms by the side and forcefully used them as pillows as they got back to sleeping. Dusky Cloud did not know how to react to this. Trying his best to get away, he said in frustration, let me go, damn it. The two warriors merely snored. Motherfuckers, I won't go up and kill him, alright? They slowly released his arms and Dusky Cloud stared at Bluey's across him. Bluey's had also promised his men that he would not be rash, so they let him go. Both men glared at each other for a while before eyeing their men with contempt. Fucking hell, you're all a bunch of useless idiots. Dusky Cloud swore. Sleep some more, then, I hope you guys die in your sleep. Bluey's chided. By this time, young Master Han once more drifted over with a glass in hand. Gentlemen, since this fight has ended in a stalemate, why don't you resolve this simply with a game of rock paper scissors? HMPH. Do you dare? Dusky Cloud taunted. Are you a fucking moron? Why would I not dare? Bluey's stood up in agitation, but his men alertly held him back. Let go, didn't you hear what he said? It's just rock paper scissors, he admonished before they let him go. The two men walked right to the center of the tavern and looked at each other with disdain. You coward, don't you dare show your hand late just because your agility is lower than mine. Dusky Cloud taunted. You better not use my slow hand speed as an excuse to deny me my win, Bluey's taunted back. Fuck you. How would I win with you showing your hand late? Dusky Cloud asked. You moron, I'm a mage. How would my hand even be faster than yours? You should be the one slowing down to match my speed. Don't go calling me a cheater now, Bluey's chided. Tell me just how fast your hand could go, then. Dusky Cloud was incensed. Gentlemen, please. Young Master Han could not stand these two's bickering any longer. How about this? Let's not use our hands this way. Each of you will write it out on a paper, and I shall be the judge of things, alright? Let's go with that, then. The two each took out a piece of paper each and carefully handed their final product to young Master Han. Young Master Han did not pause and promptly displayed both papers for them to see. Ha 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 ha. Dusky Cloud was beyond elated. "See my scissors? Watch it snip off your cowardly tail." Dusky Cloud had written scissors, while Bluey's had written paper, immediately deciding the victor for their match. Bluey's was just unlucky here, so he did not say another word. Holding his anger within, he quietly went back to his seat. "All right, Brother Han, tell me about this plan of yours." Dusky Cloud was in a great mood, so he was addressing young Master Han rather warmly, even as he continued to provokingly gaze at Bluey's with derision. Chapter 313, Leave It to Us. The squabble between the two leaders was finally resolved with a game of rock paper scissors. Although it was a game played by children, at least Bluey's was willing to accept the outcome of the match. He returned to his seat and just sat there without speaking another word, stewing in his anger. "Brother Han, quickly tell us about your plan," Dusky Cloud urged young Master Han. "You see, Silver Moon is just one man. It's simply not worth it to muster such a large force for him alone. Getting so many men to dedicate their time to hunt down that man is thoroughly unsatisfying for everyone involved," young Master Han began. "That's true. Do you have a better plan, perhaps?" Dusky Cloud nodded his head in agreement as he asked on. "Essentially, you should assign some men to guard the Knights' barracks. Let my mercenary group, Young Master's Elite, be the one to kill Silver Moon instead and deliver him straight into your arms when we travel later tonight," young Master Han proposed. Will that be appropriate?" Dusky Cloud was shocked. His question did not stem from his doubt on the capabilities of young Master's Elite but from the situation that the 6 men would be putting themselves into. After all, they were temporary comrades with Silver Moon for this skilled quest that Traversing 4 Seas had hired them for. How would the over 1,000 players treat these 6 men if they were found attacking Silver Moon? Did young Master Han not understand how serious this problem was? "Hey!" Young Master Han knew exactly what Dusky Cloud was thinking and he coolly replied, "Don't worry. This will be done in secret." "Would that work?" Dusky Cloud was a little apprehensive about their capabilities this time. With how wily and shrewd Silver Moon was, he would surely be on his guard toward his past enemies. All of them had also considered employing the backstabbing approach on Silver Moon. But since this was Silver Moon, who was adept at backstabbing when it suited him, that they were dealing with, while it might sound easy to strike him when he least expected it, they were not sure if he would grant them a chance to put him in such a spot. "Don't worry about this. If you can trust us, pay us our fee," young Master Han said. "Pay? Fee?" Dusky Cloud was nonplussed. "Bro, we're a mercenary group. Don't you know the rules to this?" Young Master Han listlessly stared at him. "Fuck." Dusky Cloud stood up abruptly. He was nationally aware of the rule, but he simply did not expect young Master Han to actually discuss this matter from a business standpoint. In his mind, it was only natural for friends to help one another, and talking about money only cheapened this relationship. For straightforward and pure men like themselves, money and assets were nothing in the face of the bonds they forged. The newfound goodwill he had for young Master Han evaporated in an instant, and as he glared at the latter's smiling face, all Dusky Cloud could feel was utter contempt for the man. Dusky Cloud was convinced that he had not been mistaken from the start. This man was truly detestable, the very opposite of everything he stood for and believed. "But on account of the friendship we have, we won't charge you exorbitantly," young Master Han said. "No." Dusky Cloud's expression soured. "Since this is strictly business, let's not drag our friendship into this." "Charge us as you will. Boss Cloud is truly a forthright person." Young Master Han took a swig of his liquor and got up. "You'll receive our bill after the deed is done. Don't you want a deposit?" "Isn't this against the usual procedure here?" Dusky Cloud said rather evenly. While it was rarer to find an employer who would mention the issue of a deposit first, Dusky Cloud only said it to mock young Master Han about his ways. "No need for that. Boss Cloud is someone who's passably trustworthy," young Master Han replied. "Passably trustworthy." Dusky Cloud clenched his fists. Young Master Han was laughing now. "All right, that's everything to it. Wash up and head to sleep. I'll take my leave first." Young Master Han bought several more bottles of liquor before leaving the tavern with an obvious pep in his step. In fact, he even glanced over to Bluey's and asked, "That skill you were using just then, it's like psychic teleportation, right?" Bluey's was momentarily stunned, but before he could answer, Young Master Han exited the tavern. Dusky Cloud glared at him. "Kid, did you trick me just then?" "What nonsense, it's a skill in the game." "Are you trying to weasel out of your loss?" Bluey's retorted. "Who lost?" "Just who the fuck has lost?" Dusky Cloud bellowed. "Let's go at it again if you're unsatisfied." Their swearing grew louder as the tavern descended into chaos once more. Young Master Han no longer gave much thought about their matter once he left the establishment, as there were not many arrangements needed to be made for this plan. Young Master Han was also not really bothered whether Dusky Cloud's team wished to continue searching for Silvermoon in the day or rotate their men to keep watch outside the Knight's barracks until nighttime. Neither move really affected what Young Master's elite had to do on their end. Anyway, when 6 p.m. came, the players from Yeonju-on City trickled online and gathered by the north gate of Beishi City. A long string of players coming from the prison headed over to this rendezvous point, as well. These players were the members of Traversing Four Seas, having just retrieved the corrupt official, Todd, who was their escort target. Prisoner Todd was in the custody of guild leader Ruthless Sword, who swaggered in front of this contingent of men. This was already their second city, which meant that Traversing Four Seas Guild quest was already 40% completed, without meeting much trouble on the road. The deaths they had incurred thus far were largely negligible, while the largest amount of casualties they had had was due to those cowards not daring to cross the crevasses in the Oolong mountain range. The 6 men of Young Master's elite, who were mixed within the crowd of mercenaries, carefully searched for someone. All of them were shaking their heads as they looked everywhere. "Anyone spotted Silvermoon yet?" These men asked one another on the mercenary channel. Their answers were all negative. Young Master Han had already informed the other 5 about him picking up a request from Dusky Cloud to send Silvermoon back to Beishi City, and each of them was more than happy to oblige. With Gu Fei's indomitable fighting prowess as well as the others' seamless teamwork, it would possibly take no more than a few seconds to finish off Silvermoon, and not even a divine intervention could save him from the fate of dying. It was only the issue of public opinion that had them exercising discretion over this particular deed. They all asked Young Master Han what plan he had, yet the only answer he gave was, "Strike when the opportunity presents itself." However, that opportunity itself had yet to surface, as they were unable to locate Silvermoon at all. "Relax. He's bound to be somewhere in this army. He'll truly be courting death if he doesn't use this chance to leave Beishi City," Young Master Han said confidently. Silvermoon had indeed mixed himself into the midst of Traversing Four Seas troops. He had a really tough day thus far, staying awake from the morning until now as he wandered around the city, feeling alarmed by the slightest breeze and the rustling of leaves. He stayed up all the way until the resumption of the quest this night, and then he and his men sneaked their way to the prison and waited. Just as he had expected, the men from Traversing Four Seas gathered outside the prison building. Silvermoon greeted Oathless Sword before mixing himself with the latter's troops that were leaving the city. Silvermoon did not say a word to Oathless Sword about his current predicament because he was certain that, given their relationship with one another, Oathless Sword would not consider his needs above that of the guild. If Silvermoon's opponents were just a few unruly ruffians, Oathless Sword would surely help extricate him from the mess. Since the enemies after his head this time were from the 10 Guild Alliance, Silvermoon was certain that Oathless Sword would instantly toss him out like a hot potato. Therefore, Silvermoon settled with mixing himself into the midst of Traversing Four Seas to sneak out of the city. It was difficult to locate one person in a horde of hundreds. After all, the only worry he had was that the 10 Guild Alliance's men might take a heavy-handed approach and figuratively burn all the boats, willing to take on the 1,000-man army of Traversing Four Seas for the sake of killing Silvermoon. Since the 10 Guild Alliance's motherfuckers were more than capable of demonstrating this level of largesse, Silvermoon was exceptionally worried. If they were willing to make such a play, he reckoned Oathless Sword would not throw down the gauntlet for his sake and might betray him instead. Thus, Silvermoon was prepared for both outcomes. He would hide among the crowd, but once he spotted the 10 Guild Alliance, he would promptly cry out, "Brothers, to arms!" like before and slip away. This was why Silvermoon's anxiety was at its peak as they got closer to the city gate. He vigilantly looked all around him, but besides the men from Yeonju-on City that were waiting for Traversing Four Seas to continue the expedition, He did not see any other troops waiting by the city gate. Silver Moon made it quite a distance out from the city gate, but the men he was certain would appear to ambush him had yet to reveal themselves. "That's it?" Silver Moon was extremely astonished. Dusky Cloud had especially traveled all the way to Beishi City just to kill him. He did not believe that the latter would just give up on him so easily. However, where were they right now? Even if they were currently not revealing themselves, they might secretly be monitoring his every move. Thinking of this, Silver Moon consciously stooped lower as he did his best to meld into the crowd. This was not a long-term solution, though. He knew it was necessary for him to confirm that no one was trailing after him. Although it had been hours since he last slept, his mind was still as agile as ever. He originally wanted to entrust one of his brothers in arms to straggle from the main body by feigning grinding in a nearby map so as to observe and find out if there were players still pursuing him. However, he thought of the possibility of his pursuers being thieves in stealth mode. This meant that his brothers in arms would still have no idea if the said assailants were right beside him. This was no trouble to the shrewd, or in other words, the cunning Silver Moon, though. Pondering on this for a moment, he immediately went to the front to look for guild leader Ruthless Sword of Traversing Four Seas. "Ruthless Sword, it seems that there are people secretly following us," Silver Moon solemnly said. "Oh, people? How do you know?" Ruthless Sword quickly asked. "I have a comrade who has something urgent and can't play tonight." Silver Moon began to fabricate smoothly. On his way back to the city to log out, he saw some men inquiring after those players grinding about the direction we are going to before heading toward where we're going as well. "Is that so? So where are those people now?" Ruthless Sword asked. "I don't really know. That comrade of mine has urgent matters to attend to, so he only said this much and did not investigate about it any further as he was in a hurry to head back to the city," Silver Moon replied regretfully. "This can't be a good thing," Ruthless Sword said as he quickly gestured for his fellow corps members, Gale Force and Youthful Reflection, to come over to him. When Youthful Reflection heard this news, he instantly asked, "Are you certain that these are players and not NPCs?" "NPCs? Would NPCs even need to ask players about what we are doing?" Silver Moon asked. "They are players, then what would players be secretly following us for?" Youthful Reflection began to contemplate about this matter, as well. "Perhaps, they're curious as to why many of us are traveling together like this?" Gale Force guessed. "It's best to pull out a few of these men and ask," Silver Moon said. Let's not spread this news just yet. Our troops should continue their march onward. I'll make the necessary arrangements," Youthful Reflection said. "Let's do just that. Thanks Silver Moon bro for your help." Ruthless Sword gave Silver Moon a friendly pat. "You're welcome, I'm always here to help." Silver Moon rubbed his bloodshot eyes as he grinned from ear to ear. Chapter 314, Him Again? Ruthless Sword and his men did not dare to be careless when facing a possible threat to Traversing Four Seas Guild quest. As the battalion of men continued their journey toward the next destination, Youthful Reflection requested two thieves to remain behind while in stealth to find out if there were any players following them. These two thieves were from the mercenary groups. This basically highlighted Traversing Four Seas' thought process and preferred course of action for this quest. They would first mobilize the mercenary groups they had hired for anything that was deemed risky. These two thieves stayed behind the advancing troops, maintaining their stealth while Ruthless Sword and Youthful Reflection anxiously waited for news. Silver Moon was equally concerned and was treating this matter very seriously. This act of his moved Ruthless Sword and Youthful Reflection quite a bit. How rare was it for them to find a mercenary who would be so responsible in this individualistic and materialistic world. They were quickly reminded of young Master's elite's money gouging ways, a clear juxtaposition to the professional they saw before them. The troops continued on their way for about 15 minutes, yet not one message arrived in the end. The corps leaders were in deep thought at this. Just as Silver Moon was about to suggest something, Ruthless Sword said to Youthful Reflection, "Perhaps they are thieves in stealth as well." "I reckon that that's the case, too." Youthful Reflection nodded his head. "If that's the case, waiting here for the enemies to reveal themselves won't work," Ruthless Sword said. "However, it's hard to say who'd be the first to discover whom if we let them continue following us like this," Youthful Reflection said. Everyone nodded in agreement. In the early days of the game, Thieves were indeed the most ideal candidate to tail such large group of people, but as the players leveled, especially with the improvement in the standard of the equipment that they had, thieves no longer had the capacity to do this. The reason behind this was the disparity in movement speed. When thieves activated stealth, their movement speed would drastically decrease to about 25% of their original movement speed. Even the priest, who had the slowest movement speed in Parallel World, would see a 0.7 increase to their movement speed every level up even without allocating points to agility. The movement speed they possessed at level 40 would be 70 plus 40 times 0.7 equals 98. The current trend among the level 40 priests was for them to equip a pair of nimble shoes that increased movement speed by 80, reaching a total of 178 movement speed. Nimble shoes were commonly available and cheap, so plenty of players used them. In fact, almost any average priest would have a pair on hand. Since the players present were first-rate gamers or at least quasi-top class, it was entirely possible for their current footwear to be even better than that pair of nimble shoes. With 178-point movement speed as the baseline, a thief in stealth would require a movement speed of 712 points just to match it. This movement speed of 712 was no joke, as this would be a stat only a superhuman would possess. Even someone like Gufei, who had extremely fast movement speed, did not have over 500 of it. Perhaps, even the speedsters felt Dancer had yet to reach that extraordinary level. Therefore, unless the players were intentionally slowing down, the days when thieves could solely depend on stealth to easily stalk people were pretty much over. With how the entire horde of players from Yunjuan City was currently heading to the next city in full speed, there was no way any thieves looking to tail them could remain in stealth the whole time. They would have to occasionally reveal themselves as they hurried to catch up. Thus, when it came to preventing thieves from stalking them, players only needed to grasp the timing of when the thieves would have to reveal themselves. Oathless Sword would merely be relying on chance when they used the method they had employed before by tasking a few thieves in stealth to stay behind and watch their backs. There was no telling if the thieves tailing them happened to only reveal themselves after they coincidentally stepped out of their line of sight. After all, young Master's Elite's 1,000 miles drunk seems to be capable of countering stealth. Gale Force mentioned. Fuck, can we really not accomplish our quest without his help? Youthful Reflection grumbled. Oathless Sword was disgruntled as well. Looking for their help yet again meant young Master Han could earn another tidy sum off of him. It was also strange how the quest they were doing seemed to be designed for Gufei, requiring him to step in time and time again. Let's find our own solution. Youthful Reflection decisively told Oathless Sword. Oathless Sword nodded his head as he turned his gaze on the person whom he considered as the epitome of what a mercenary should be. Does Silver Moon Bro have any ideas to suggest? Hunting trap is currently the only way I know that can counter stealth, Silver Moon replied. Hunting trap? Youthful Reflection muttered. That's not a very reliable solution. It's not gonna work since we don't know the route our stalkers are taking. Let's take this as our last resort. Then, don't we happen to have one such mercenary group that would be perfect for this? Oathless Sword asked. Youthful Reflection nodded his head as he sent a message on the party channel for mercenary leaders, calling for the group leader of the Great Hunting, Sakurazaka Muni, to come forward. The hunter quickly made his way to the front and greeted everyone present. Silver Moon instantly recognized Sakurazaka Muni as the person currently hanging around Vast Lushness. Fearing that this hunter might not look on him too kindly, Silver Moon did not make things difficult for himself and voluntarily stepped to the side to avoid him. As Silver Moon had expected, when Sakurazaka Muni caught sight of him, the glare he gave oozed with contempt. He and his mercenary group had more or less learned the whole story after being hunted for an entire day and night the day before. No matter how anyone looked at it, there was no way for anyone to mistake Silver Moon as anything but a scum. What's the matter? Sakurazaka Muni asked Oathless Sword and the rest of the men. Youthful Reflection quickly got him up to speed. Your mercenary group is mostly made up of hunters, right? Sakurazaka Muni sighed regretfully. Originally, yes. We've lost about 22 of them a few days back in Y City, so that statement is no longer true. So the rumors are true. Youthful Reflection was astonished. When the mercenaries were comparing the losses that they had suffered in Y City, he overheard Sakurazaka Muni bragging about going up against the 10 Guild Alliance, sacrificing 22 men in the process. Everyone had thought that he was merely boasting back then. Now Youthful Reflection knew otherwise. Sakurazaka Muni's expression was colder than the iciest blizzard. Did you think otherwise? So be it. Then, I'm sure there are still hunters in the other mercenary groups with us. Let's just gather them and let Muni here take charge of the setup, Oathless Sword said as he turned his head to the side, asking, any thoughts, Silver Moon bro? Big mistake, Silver Moon shouted inside him. He felt like crying right now, yet no tears would come out. This was an understandable blunder on Oathless Sword's end, though. After all, this was a plan Silver Moon had suggested, and asking him for his input before going ahead with it was Oathless Sword's way of displaying his respect toward Silver Moon. The problem was that such an act did not sit well with the present company. As expected, Sakurazaka Muni's displeasure was made apparent once he heard that the plan was something Silver Moon had cooked up. He even looked as though Silver Moon had been the one to send him off to work. Sakurazaka Muni's dignity would not allow it, so he promptly thought up of an excuse to exempt himself from this plan. Ugh, my stomach hurts. Oh, no. I think I have to take my leave. You'll need to command that team yourselves. Ah. That single exclamation was the only thing he got out before Sakurazaka Muni disappearing with his 500 plus movement speed. What just happened? Youthful Reflection was looking at Oathless Sword in confusion. I don't know. Oathless Sword was stunned as well. They were no fools, though, and could tell Sakurazaka Muni was faking his stomach ache to be excused from this. Your tongue slipping is what happened, Silver Moon said to himself in frustration. There's no way we can gather enough hunters without their help. Youthful Reflection was depressed. Advancing as a hunter was already an unpopular choice for many archers. Traversing 4C's trump card was its archer formation, so they encouraged their men to advance as a sharpshooter, thinking of resolving their lack of trappers through future recruitments once their guild leveled up some more. They really lacked such talents in their guild right now, so Sakurazaka Muni backing out at the last minute instantly rendered their hunting trap plan useless. No choice. We'll have to look for 1,000 Miles Drunk's help, Gale Force said. Oathless Sword and Youthful Reflection gritted their teeth when they heard this, while Silver Moon casually commented, 1,000 Miles Drunk. That guy isn't too reliable, right? While he might look as if he did not care about this, Silver Moon was actually extremely anxious right now. The reason he was expending so much effort right now was not for the sake of traversing 4C's quest but for his survival. His goal was to find out if Dusky Cloud or Bluey's had sent scouts after him and to borrow traversing 4C's strength to eliminate these threats accordingly. If Goofy were to go, he might just quickly decide to aid these men with their dark deed once they made contact and would just inform Oathless Sword that there were no issues behind them instead. That guy is indeed shameless and crafty, Youthful Reflection remarked to Silver Moon's delight. But his skill is the real deal. Gale Force countered to Silver Moon's displeasure. He had no way to refute this, though. I'm sure he won't have any problems if we give him this task, Oathless Sword said. As Silver Moon's face turned ashen, Oathless Sword continued, but he's too expensive. Silver Moon's expression brightened slightly. Just what the heck is up with Sakurazaka Muni, anyway? Youthful Reflection muttered, calling him over the party channel, yet he received no response. Silver Moon did not even dare to say a word as he stood by the side. I'll go look for him. Youthful Reflection moved to talk face to face with Sakurazaka Muni to Silver Moon's elation. Forget it, Oathless Sword stopped him. With how he looked, then, I'm certain he's using this opportunity to make a killing off of us. Since we'll pay for it no matter which option we take, we might as well rely on the far more effective 1,000 Miles Drunk. Silver Moon really had the mind to eviscerate Oathless Sword right there and then. Youthful Reflection was sad as well, but he had to agree with the logic behind Oathless Sword's statement. If Sakurazaka Muni were trying to gouge them out as well, then it would be better to get Goofy's help. Call him. Oathless Sword instantly thought of young Master Han. He sighed to himself as he subconsciously felt for his coin pouch. Silver Moon took the initiative to stand somewhere prominent this time, hoping that Goofy would refuse to help just like Sakurazaka Muni when he saw him. When Goofy arrived, Silvermoon did not wait for Oathless Sword to speak. Stepping forward, he used a commanding tone to speak with Gufei. Unfortunately, he had underestimated Gufei's professionalism. All he did was quietly listen to his every word before nodding his head. "All right, I got it. You guys can carry on, then. We're in your care, then." Oathless Sword patted Gufei's shoulder. Gufei nodded his head and pointed to Silvermoon before leaving. "You should take care." Silvermoon was mortified. Everyone around him could see the emotion reflected in his eyes. That vacant stare that hung on his face looked to be that of a dead man's. Chapter 315, Cutting off the stalkers. Gufei's parting words almost gave Silvermoon the sudden impulse to immediately dive off the road for cover. He had the gut feeling that not only would Gufei discover that the assassins were after his life, he might just lead them straight to him as well. He had really been far too careless in his decision to reveal himself to Gufei. Silvermoon deeply regretted his thoughtless action now. Silvermoon did not intend to die without putting up a fight, though, and so he came up with another idea on the spot. "Why don't we send some helpers with 1,000 miles drunk? He is his fellow mercenaries." Oathless Sword's answer made Silvermoon feel that he might not get a chance to escape if he dragged the matter on. Yet the latter unexpectedly retracted this statement quickly enough with a slap to his forehead. "Oh, wait. If we're not using his fellow mercenaries, we can send our helpers, instead." While Oathless Sword's goal was to lower the service fee he would have to pay, Silvermoon was still elated. If Traversing Four Seas sent their men with Gufei, how would he intentionally go easy on Dusky Cloud's team? It's best to not let him know about this, just send men to follow him secretly. Silvermoon's plans were more devious than the last. If Traversing Four Seas sent men after him openly, Gufei would most likely pretend to not have discovered the interlopers. However, if Traversing Four Seas men followed him secretly, they might catch Gufei going easy on the enemies. This meant that they would not just take care of Dusky Cloud and his men, but Gufei would also be seen as a degenerate and a traitor, essentially killing two birds with one stone. Unexpectedly, Traversing Four Seas' three core members turned to look curiously at Silvermoon. "Oh, no." Silvermoon thought to himself, "I was too obvious when I said that." Just as Silvermoon was about to say something to salvage the situation, he heard Youthful Reflection say, "Stealth doesn't work on 1,000 miles drunk." Silvermoon felt stunned. His moment of desperation had caused him to forget this fact, letting slip such a silly idea. The sleep deprivation and spike of anxiety he was suffering from delivered a substantial mental shock to him, causing Silvermoon to have such a momentary lapse of judgment. Still, it's a good idea to send a few thieves along with him. The enemies might be lulled into a false sense of security if they remain in stealth beside 1,000 miles drunk, Oathless Sword said, not having any idea of Silvermoon's real goal at all. "Okay, I'll go make the necessary arrangements." Youthful Reflection agreed. In situations like this that had the possibility to escalate into combat, their first choice of personnel to deploy was naturally still the mercenaries. Special requests with mercenary groups like Young Master's Elite would require extra fees, but that was only a condition that young Master Han had especially fought for. Most mercenary groups were contented to be hired by Traversing Four Seas for one contract and would listen to any commands from the guild now that they were paid. "Find someone reliable," Oathless Sword ordered. "Shall we get Xiao Shang, then?" Youthful Reflection asked for Oathless Sword's opinion. "Yes." Oathless Sword nodded his head. Among the many hired mercenary groups, Rainbow Betwixt the Clouds headed by Gu Xiaoshang was possibly the only one that they could trust. Moreover, this mercenary group managed to snag the 4th place in the mercenary PvP tournament after losing to Brave Surge's mercenary group. Over by Young Master's Elite, Gufei was naturally asked by the others about what Traversing Four Seas needed from him when he returned. After telling them of the matter, all shared the same question in mind. "Are they Dusky Cloud's men? There's no need for him to send men to trail us. Why are we guessing? Let's just ask the man himself." Sending a message over to the man, Dusky Cloud nervously replied, "No. We're all lying in wait over by the Knight's barracks." "Why? Is there a problem?" "No problems." Sword Demon, who had been in charge of contacting Dusky Cloud, relayed this message over to the rest of the gang. "It wasn't him. There's another guy there," young Master Han offered, that really wants to kill Silver Moon. He seems to be originally from past deeds, so it might be his group. That guy could also be considered to be on our side. War Without Wounds said. Young Master Han furrowed his brows as he asked Gufei, if there's someone following us, yet people at the back like us don't know of it, how did those people from the front learn of it before us? Gufei shrugged his shoulders to express his confusion as well. Perhaps Silver Moon is already aware of our intention, Brother Assist opined. There's no need for him to be aware of our intention, he would probably think of it even if he used his knee to think. But if this is something he planned, why did he let Miles be the one doing the work? That would be of no help to him at all. No matter how intelligent young Master Han was, he would have no way of knowing that Silver Moon had actually shot himself in the foot here and was currently stewing in his own juice. Since that scum is hanging around Oathless Sword and Company, we might have difficulties getting this job done, Sword Demon said. Assassinating their temporary mercenary comrade in front of Oathless Sword would truly be far too unprofessional. At least, we now know where he is. Brother Assist expressed. To them, the most valuable take-back from Gufei's trip was discovering Silver Moon's hiding place. This was something Silver Moon had missed in his hurry to resolve the threat to his life. Forget it. Just go and do what they asked. Any men following this expedition probably have a bone to pick with Silver Moon, so go easy on them depending on how the situation plays out, young Master Han said. You guys aren't coming along? Gufei was surprised. Youthful reflection has informed me that they only asked for your specific help this time. We won't get paid more if the rest of us choose to help, so what's the point of going? Young Master Han stretched his back and yawned. I'm going, then. Gufei did not really mind this. He was just about to leave the battalion when a large pack of players approached him. The woman leading this pack was the very lady who had berated Oathless Sword harshly during the mercenary gathering back in the tavern days ago. Guzio Shang, 1,000 miles drunk. We're tagging along with you, the lady shouted as she strode toward him. Oh. Young Master Han realized what was going on. They had men waiting here for you. No wonder they're reassured with just sending Miles alone. They've got a supervisor. Young Master Han always spoke his mind, completely ignoring the fact that the person he was talking about was just standing right in front of him. Guzio Shang glanced briefly at young Master Han before ignoring him outright as she addressed Gufei. Let's go. Gufei nodded his head and followed the pack of mercenaries to detach from the main body. They did not go anywhere in particular and only stayed where they were to wait for the potential stalkers behind. Stealth, Guzio Shang ordered with a wave of her arm. Since the men she had brought with her were all thieves, when they entered stealth, only she and Gufei were left standing in the middle of the road. The name's Guzio Shang. Guzio Shang introduced herself. MHM, 1,000 miles drunk. Although this lady called him by his IGN just then, he felt that a formal introduction was currently in order. Heard you're really powerful, Guzio Shang remarked. I'm pretty good. Gufei agreed. That's not very humble. Guzio Shang laughed. That is me being humble. Gufei chuckled, saying, won't I be insulting everyone if I insist that I am nothing much, given the position I am in? Hey. Guzio Shang chuckled as well as she pulled out a greatsword from her dimensional pocket and held it before herself. Her tangerine-colored warrior's armor was not curated like the average female player's, but she still managed to appear particularly breathtaking due to the orange cape, which was fluttering in the breeze, draped on her shoulder. Seeing that Gufei's eyes were drawn to the cape, Guzio Shang laughed. What do you think? Cool, huh? Gufei laughed as well. The cape is indeed cool, but it's cumbersome in a fight. Although a cape was stylish, it was nothing but a large piece of cloth that flapped about with every action during a fight. There was just no telling when it would wrap itself onto an arm or a leg. It was wholly impractical. Actually, Gufei's Midnight Spirit robe was also not ideal to wear when performing moves. After all, it was not designed for Kung Fu. This was especially true for the hem of this robe that reached to the ground. It was constantly getting in the way of doing things. Fireball's method of unbuttoning the robe was a solution to this, so Gufei had half the mind to wear his clothes like that. But it was just as what Fireball had said, his inner shirt was simply too ugly. It was best if he got something newer before he changed the way he wore the robe. I can take it off when the fighting begins. Guzio Shang's hand went to her neck and gave it a good tug. causing the cape to fall off her shoulders as she gestured to Gu Fei. "Look how convenient it is. It's tied by your neck. Wouldn't you be choked by it?" Gu Fei was startled. "Nope. You see, this cape has two buckles, so I can fasten it on my shoulders. I only tied the cape around my neck to secure it more firmly. This is specially designed for my armor. What do you think? Are you interested?" Gu Xiaosheng asked. "I'm good." Gu Fei smiled. "Come look for me anytime you wanna do something like this. I know a player who picked up the tailor crafting profession in Yunjuan City, but what's amazing is that he actually knows how to tailor, and so in reality, his skills are exceptionally good. We've got company." Gu Fei exclaimed. "Where?" Gu Xiaosheng immediately braced her greatsword before her. "Oh, my bad. I was mistaken," Gu Fei corrected himself. "Oh." Gu Xiaosheng stuck the greatsword back to the ground as she carefully did her cape up once more. Gu Fei was speechless. While this person had a gruff temperament, she was absolutely a woman. "Speaking of which, how do you counter stealth?" Gu Xiaosheng asked. "Killing intent," Gu Fei honestly replied. "Killing intent?" Gu Xiaosheng was nonplussed. "Yup. I am a kung fu practitioner, so I'm rather sensitive to this sort of things," Gu Fei explained. "Are you for real?" Gu Xiaosheng asked. "Of course." "Then, teach me," Gu Xiaosheng requested. "It's not possible for you to learn it without spending decades of training," Gu Fei rejected. "You can't fool me, I think you're kidding," Gu Xiaosheng said with certainty. Gu Fei gave her a wry smile. "I'm being honest." Gu Xiaosheng naturally did not believe him, but just as she was about to voice her doubt, she saw Gu Fei suddenly lose his smiling countenance and pull out a sword from his dimensional pocket. "They're here." "Where?" "They are in stealth right in front of us." Gu Fei had already lifted his hand. "Blazing tree of 1,000 inferno. Arise." "Ah, don't kill them all. Leave some for questioning," Gu Xiaosheng quipped. "Got it. Call your men to stop staring at me and get to work," Gu Fei retorted. Chapter 316, A Heuristic Approach. It was not easy for thieves in stealth to get into formation. Since they were unable to see one another and even the slightest brush would reveal them, thieves had to be careful when working in a team. The design of Parallel World was not complex and was actually simpler in certain ways than the other MMOs, but because it was a fully immersive game, plenty of things that they were doing required a certain level of knowledge before they could be properly executed. There was no need to go into details about how these thieves achieved this, but what mattered was that none of them had revealed themselves in the process. Instead, it was Gu Xiaosheng who curiously asked Gu Fei, "Where's your spell? My casting time is a bit on the slow side." Just as Gu Fei said this, flames sprouted in a large area before them, revealing 5 thieves instantly. Gu Fei had covertly released the spell, and since the enemy thieves were not expecting their stealth to be seen through, none of them was on guard against this, so that one spell got them all. Gu Fei raised his hand and pointed his sword toward another direction. "Descending wheel of flames. Descend." Before that flame wheel even appeared, 3 thieves were already seen fleeing from its AO. They had no choice but to cancel their stealth. Their movement speed while under stealth was just too slow, so they would have no way of escaping the spell's AO with it. They were already exposed, anyway, so they might as well avoid taking any unnecessary damage. Gu Fei made sure to cast his spells with his non-dominant hand, so those 2 AO spells he had just unleashed did not have much damage in them. The 8 thieves that got revealed were all in a daze, uncertain of how they had exposed themselves. Gu Xiaosheng strode forward with unparalleled confidence, her left hand lightly undoing her cape's buckles as the wind easily blew it off her shoulders. The word stylish was not enough to describe this entire sequence. "Who are you guys?" Gu Xiaosheng's right hand gripped the great sword that was stabbed in the ground as she gruffly asked. Gu Fei lightly came by and whispered, "Your cape got blown far away." Gu Xiaosheng hurriedly turned to look and saw that her cape had indeed gone fluttering with a strong breeze. However, she did not get flustered as she cried out toward the direction where the wind was blowing. In that instant, a thief beside her revealed himself and chased after the cape with fleet foot. Everyone was dumbfounded. It was rare to find a lady that played it cool with such commitment. Ahem! Gu Fei cleared his throat, drawing everyone's attention back to the matter at hand. Gu Xiaosheng raised her arm. "Surround them." The 8 men were naturally very surprised by this. All they saw before them were 3 players, And one of them had even gone chasing after the gape. Of course, from the way that thief had revealed himself to chase after the gape, these 8 realized that there must be more than one thief with them right now. The 8 men instantly went back to back in a circle, flurrying their daggers in the air to prevent the thieves in stealth from using backstab on them. Just who the hell are you guys? Gu Xiaosheng asked once more. They did not reply. Who are you all looking for? Gu Fei took a heuristic approach to his questioning as he wondered on how he would go easy on them if these 8 men were truly looking for Silver Moon, yet not one of them spoke up. This made the 2 of them unsure of how to proceed. Gu Fei definitely needed to find out the opposing party's identity, while Gu Xiaosheng came along with the intention of learning the reason behind these men's action. If you're not gonna say a word, we're gonna have to kill you all, Gu Xiaosheng threatened. The enemy thief facing them revealed a scornful expression as he asked Gu Xiaosheng, kill us? How many guys do you have? How many do you think? Gu Xiaosheng smiled. Hey! The man laughed derisively before abruptly shouting, omnidirectional Whitestone. Gu Fei and Gu Xiaosheng were stupefied, as they had never heard of this skill before. The 8 thieves, who had their backs against one another, each took out a small pouch from their dimensional pockets and tossed them in various directions. White dust and pebbles spilled out from the pouches, creating a cloud of white fog around them. In that instant, the thieves surrounding the 8 men were all revealed as their bodies got covered in a layer of that stuff. Gu Xiaosheng had a level 4 mercenary group with 80 members. 10 thieves were in the group, but 2 of them were ladies who did not have the guts to cross the crevasses in the Oolong mountain range and went back to Yunjuan City. One of them had yet to return from chasing after the gape that had gone flying. In short, there were only 7 thieves present and they were currently covered in layers of dust and totally exposed. He. This is the white stone dust that Arbeshi City produces. I bet you've never seen this before. The thief was very pleased with himself. Sweeping his gaze on the people around them, he saw that there were only 7 thieves, Gu Fei, and Gu Xiaosheng. With only a difference of 1 player, the man believed that the other side did not hold any huge advantage in this confrontation, which made him chuckle. You call this a gank? Gu Xiaosheng had already called for reinforcement from Oathless Sword, as none of them had expected that many enemy players were stalking them. They had only assumed that 2 or 3 players at most would be chasing after them. Gu Xiaosheng's current objective was to stall for time and she had no wish to fight with these enemies. What do you guys really intend to do? Gu Xiaosheng strove to prolong their conversation. Let's not waste time and break out of this encirclement quickly. The thief did not bother replying to Gu Xiaosheng and merely turned around to instruct his comrades. He then activated his fleet foot and darted to engage a random thief. The others immediately followed behind him and ran in the same direction. When Gu Xiaosheng saw the enemies blitzing the weakest member of the 7 thieves present, she realized, to her great astonishment, that the enemies had appraised everyone in the time that she was stalling for time and picked out the weakest link in their encirclement. Gu Xiaosheng turned around to address Gu Fei, yet she could not find him. When she turned to face their opponents once more, she saw Gu Fei already in front of the enemy thief, who seemed to be in charge of the opposing side. Gu Fei's sword in hand lashed out in a blazing red arc, killing the thief right there and then. Stunned by his display of power, the 7 remaining enemies stopped in their tracks and subconsciously backed away to distance themselves from Gu Fei. Gu Fei did not have a choice at this point. Had he managed to confirm their identities, he would have covertly helped them break out of their encirclement and would not even have struck so heavy-handedly the way he just did. However, these men were stubbornly refusing to say a word about anything, and as a responsible mercenary, Gu Fei could obviously not let them escape just like that. A dark, purple sword, a black mage robe, and the ability to insta-kill with twin incineration. These were characteristics that allowed others to identify the now famous Gu Fei. The 7 men gawked for a brief moment before coming back to their senses and exclaiming, "1,000 miles drunk. Do you guys know me?" Gu Fei asked. "You're that op guy from the video." They mumbled. "So you guys know who you're dealing with now, huh? Quickly tell us who sent you, what you're doing here, where you're from, where you're going, and what your intentions are for following us." Spit them all out. Gu Xiaosheng had come over by now. The 7 men looked at one another, not speaking a word. Gu Fei was also in a bit of a pickle. This was when an idea came to him and he casually asked one of them, "What's your name?" "Wild Boar." "That's a pretty dumb name." Gu Xiaosheng could not help but laugh. Gu Fei, however, did not have this thought and he hurriedly added him as a friend. If they had problems speaking about the matter aloud, a private conversation would surely do the trick. In the end, all he got was the system prompt, "Player Wild Boar is not accepting any friend request at the moment." Gu Fei's hands were tied now, so he could only probe, "Wild Boar, are you guys looking for someone since you're tailing us this closely? Is something the matter? If you're looking for someone for some private matter, give us his name and we'll get him out here. There's no need to complicate things and kill one another like this. Am I right, Xiaosheng?" "That's right." Gu Xiaosheng nodded her head. "If this is truly the case, why can't we just talk this through? Even if you have a feud with someone in our contingent here, I'm sure we could all sit down together and negotiate a proper solution for everyone." Gu Fei felt that this was the extent of his heuristic approach. "That's right. Let's sit down and negotiate." Gu Xiaosheng concurred. The 7 men were still not speaking a word. Gu Fei face-palmed as he flicked his free hand. "I'm out of ideas. Do whatever you want, but don't say I didn't try to help you guys." With that, Gu Fei stepped away to eat an apple. "This is actually a hint. I'm out of mana now, so you guys better use this opportunity to run away." Gu Fei felt that since he had already discovered these players, it should more or less be considered as him managing to intervene in their tracking and technically fulfilling the given task. He did not have the responsibility to apprehend them after. Apparently, these men did not receive Gu Fei's hint at all as they remained standing in that circle like idiots. Gu Fei finished his apple and his mana was back to full. Gu Xiaosheng spent that time standing on the side and persuading them to divulge information. Eventually, her cape was brought back to her and no longer said another word. "Forget it." Gu Xiaosheng ran out of patience and waved to Gu Fei, "Miles, kill them." "Why must I be the one to kill them?" Gu Fei asked absent-mindedly. "With your fearsome ability, who else but you can do it?" Gu Xiaosheng asked back. "Actually, with the mana I currently have, I don't think I can insta-kill so many of them," Gu Fei secretly admitted to Gu Xiaosheng. "Don't bullshit me, that video showed you killing off more than 20 people." Gu Xiaosheng retorted. "Something like killing people is a matter of providence," Gu Fei said. "What nonsense are you spouting?" Gu Xiaosheng asked. "The video only depicted my fleeting moments of excellence, where my enemies happened to engage me when I was in tip-top shape. They essentially edited out all those times when I was out of mana," Gu Fei explained. "That's too much." "How could they do that?" Gu Xiaosheng exclaimed. "That's right. They are really too irresponsible," Gu Fei agreed. "You should have posted a thread explaining the matter," Gu Xiaosheng admonished. "Explain? What's there to explain?" "To tell people not to believe the falseness depicted in the video, of course. But it wasn't falsified. It's just a compilation of my best moments." "That won't do either. That's not real. I guess." Hey, you two." Someone finally interrupted their hushed conversation. "What?" Both of them turned to face the man who had spoken. "Are we doing it or not?" the thief from Gu Xiaosheng's mercenary group asked. "Of course, we're attacking," Gu Xiaosheng quickly said as she pointed to Gu Fei, "and that includes you." Gu Fei sighed deeply as he waved his sword to point at those men. "This is your final chance, we're gonna kill you all if you guys don't tell us anything." With how these men were all tightly huddled together, Gu Fei could kill them all with one move. This was what Providence meant. "Can we really leave if we tell you the truth?" one of them suddenly asked. "Hey!" Someone beside the man immediately glared at him for saying that. "I don't wanna lose my levels." The man leapt away from the other 7 men. Chapter 317, The Death of Silver Moon. Gu Fei and Gu Xiaosheng dumbly watched the internal conflict that took hold of the 7 men before them. Neither of them had expected for such a situation to occur, instantly making them feel really awkward, as though they were forcing these good men to do something incorrigible. The 6 thieves were already exploding with anger as they bellowed, "You'll be the first one to lose your level." They then surrounded the traitor and 6 daggers flashed out in unison. White light shone from within the encirclement after, a clear indication to everyone present that the traitor had not met a good ending. The 6 men proceeded to face Gu Fei and Gu Xiaosheng once more, their eyes shining in defiance. "Come and kill us if you can." The jury's still out on who will be the one doing the dying. "Forget it. Just leave," Gu Xiaosheng suddenly said. The 6 men, including Gu Fei and her underlings, were all stunned. "What do you mean?" Gu Fei asked Gu Xiaosheng. "I was only looking to scare them a bit, and yet they have shown to not be in the least bit afraid. We'll just take it as our loss," Gu Xiaosheng replied. "Oh." Gu Fei shrugged his shoulders and did not say anything else. "Leave. Otherwise, it'll be too late," Gu Xiaosheng told the 6 thieves. The 6 of them showed hesitation on what they should do. When Gu Fei saw their hesitation, he could not help but wonder, "You hesitate to answer our questions and also hesitate when we're letting you off. Just what do we have to do for you to shake that skepticism off?" Gu Fei drew out 2 flaming arcs in the air. "Leave. Otherwise, I'll make my move." The 6 men turned around doubtfully. Gu Xiaosheng clapped her hands and the 3 thieves stepped aside to give them a way out. At the same time, a flurry of footsteps could be heard coming from behind Gu Fei and Gu Xiaosheng as their reinforcement appeared a good distance away. Gu Xiaosheng impatiently stamped her feet. "Hurry!" The 6 men no longer hesitated and scrambled off as fast as they could. Gu Fei turned to watch their reinforcements' arrival. Youthful Reflection, who was taking the lead, brought along an assorted score of comrades, staring at the 6 thieves making their heroic escape. He quickly asked, "How did they get away?" "I told you guys to hurry. All of you were too slow, so we didn't manage to stop them from escaping," Gu Xiaosheng reasoned. "Weren't there only 8 thieves? Couldn't you even block them for a little longer?" Youthful Reflection was suspicious. "I didn't manage to stop any of them, and that's all there is to it. Why are you asking so many nonsensical questions?" Gu Xiaosheng was visibly annoyed by this. Women. They were all natural-born actors. Gu Xiaosheng looked so calm even when she said all this. Youthful Reflection, would you ever suspect that she had intentionally let those men off? As Gu Fei thought this, Youthful Reflection unexpectedly changed target. "Miles bro, it's just 8 thieves. Surely, you could have made an effort to stop them?" Gu Fei froze up, as Gu Xiaosheng nervously glanced at him. Gu Fei gave this reply with arched eyebrows. "My stomach coincidentally ached at that moment, so I didn't manage to stop them." Suddenly being the focus of everyone's attention, Gu Fei was unable to conjure up any convincing excuse. It was obvious that he was lying, so Youthful Reflection glared at him hatefully. Youthful Reflection could not even give chase as he did not even manage to find any trace of the thieves. He turned to ask Gu Xiaosheng, "So what did they plan to do?" Gu Xiaosheng helplessly answered, "I don't know. They didn't reveal anything even when we beat them to death." Youthful Reflection heaved a sigh, feeling helpless at their situation. "Let's hurry back." Then Youthful Reflection brought all his men to rejoin the rest of the battalion as fast as they could. They were all members of Traversing 4 Seas, and being away from the rest of their fellow members made them feel uneasy. They felt as though the whole world was out to assassinate them, preventing them from completing their guild quest. At that moment, not one of them wanted to travel with Gu Fei and the rest of the mercenaries, and they seized this chance to chase after the expedition's main body. With Youthful Reflection's departure, Gu Xiaosheng finally sighed in relief and faced Gu Fei. "Thanks a lot." "What for?" "I'm thanking your stomach for hurting." "Although that's a really lousy excuse," Gu Xiaosheng remarked. "I'm not good at lying," Gu Fei said, saying, "Anyway, aren't you close with Traversing 4 Seas? Why didn't you tell them the truth? Rules still have to be followed even when we are close." "If I told them that I let the enemies escape, they might dock my commission. I gotta at least make sure my men could make a living with me, after all," Gu Xiaosheng explained. They all chatted while hurrying to catch up with the rest of the group, but since the warrior Gu Xiaosheng was among them and they could not possibly abandon her, they had slight difficulties catching up. Thankfully, Oathless Sword, as the leader, was able to command the expedition to slow down the pace, all to take care of his beloved lady, which allowed Gu Fei and the others to slowly but surely make up for the distance between them and the main body. Youthful Reflection had long since rejoined the battalion by now, and Mothless Sword came forward to ask him for an update. Silver Moon stood by the side without making another sound, yet his heart was actually beating in trepidation. "They escaped," Youthful Reflection reported. "Those guys already ran off by the time my men came to their aid." How is that possible? Wasn't there just 8 thieves? With 1,000 miles drunk there, how did they escape? Silver Moon was shocked. He said he had a stomach ache. Then, youthful reflection shrugged helplessly. And you guys believed that? Silver Moon turned his gaze at everyone. Obviously, no one believed that. This sort of lie was the most infuriating, though, as it was blatantly made up, yet they had no recourse to pursue it. I'm sure there's more to this as to why 1,000 miles drunk let them escape, Silver Moon said. He was already convinced that those men were looking for him. Perhaps, Gufei had already betrayed Silver Moon's position from that meeting alone. Could it be that they already had sharpshooters hiding nearby waiting to perforate him with snipes? You can question Guzio Shang when she gets back, youthful reflection said to Oathless Sword. I'll do it right now. Oathless Sword immediately sent Guzio Shang a message. Silver Moon had already started making himself as inconspicuous as possible as among the crowd. He really wished he could have his 3 guardians with bulwark of imprisonment protect him, but they were unfortunately assigned to guard the NPC Todd by traversing 4 seas right now. Oathless Sword and his men also feared that some sharpshooters were hiding nearby and were looking to end their quest with a well-placed snipe. As such, Silver Moon did not have even the slightest sense of security right now, and as Oathless Sword and Guzio Shang conversed with each other, he did not stop thinking, to run or not to run? If I do run away, where should I go? This was when Oathless Sword announced, Zio Shang said 1,000 miles drunk is fine, he just had a stomach ache back then. He's faking it. He's sure to be faking it. Silver Moon insisted. Oathless Sword neither confirmed nor denied this, not wanting to suspect his sweetheart of anything. Meanwhile, Guzio Shang pointed at Gufei when her conversation with Oathless Sword ended. Hey, those guys are really suspicious of you. Told you your excuse is really lousy. Be thankful that this informant here is on your side right now. Woman, aren't I carrying your guilt here? Gufei asked. Instead, why so serious? I'll give you a cut of our commission when we get back, Guzio Shang said. Wouldn't your men have thoughts about this? Gufei turned his gaze over to the rest of the thieves. Any thoughts? Guzio Shang turned to address them. Nope. None at all. They hurriedly replied. Their reaction was quite a shock to Gufei. He considered himself to be someone that had seen all types of characters in this game, but Guzio Shang was pretty much the only leader he knew that could exert such an aura as a boss. Oathless Sword, Brave Surge, Dusky Cloud, and even Silver Moon would never openly show condescension in front of their men like she had just done. Back to the main body, Oathless Sword no longer cared to pursue the matter, which left Silver Moon at a loss on what to do next. One thing he was sure was that there was no way for a handful of thieves to get past Gufei. That poor excuse of having a stomach ache was clearly to cover his act of going easy on those men, which meant that they knew one another. Undoubtedly, those men must be part of Dusky Cloud's team. Having come face to face with him, Silver Moon was certain that his position had already been revealed to the enemies by now. There was even a good chance that a bunch of assassins was heading toward him right now. He had to run. He must run. Silver Moon had already decided to slip away, and this battalion of men was perfect for him to do so. One player disappearing among this sea of men should not rouse any suspicion. This was his plan of escape. As for the next step, he would think about it after he extricated himself from this predicament. With his mind firmly made up, Silver Moon began to take note of the surrounding terrain and the actions of the players around him. The troops ahead were just about to circle around a copse. This was a perfect chance for him to slip away, as everyone would be focusing on the road ahead. Silver Moon slowed down his step when he neared the small copse of trees, acting as though nothing was out of the ordinary, and gradually detached himself from the mass of players. With that, he casually stood by the big tree he had his eye on for quite some time and began to pretend foraging for something at the base of the tree. This was a normal action that players did, as some players, who had chosen crafting professions, discovered that certain medicinal herbs and such could be easily gathered by doing this, so as long as he was not holding up the expedition, no one would question his action. Silver Moon's heart was beating wildly, and the footfalls of the players mimicked the thudding of his heart. He crooked his head left and right to look around. Only when he saw that no one was taking note of his action did Silver Moon stand up, turn around, and hide behind the tree. This tree was enough to block anyone's vision, So Silvermoon was extremely satisfied by his choice. He felt much at ease when his act of hiding behind the tree did not alert anyone. What he had to do now was to quietly wait for the entire battalion to pass before sneaking away. As for what he would do next, that was a problem he would have to carefully consider. As Silvermoon pondered on, the stragglers of the entire battalion slowly passed him. "Looks like it's time for me to slip away," Silvermoon thought to himself. He moved away from the tree and looked toward the main rows that lay behind him for a moment, before turning back to head deeper into the woods. He only took 2 steps forward when he felt a heavy blow connecting to the back of his head. Silvermoon instantly lost his ability to move or speak, and he mentally bemoaned this turn of event. "Crap, bludgeon. Who's there?" Silvermoon would have wanted to ask this, but he unfortunately would never know the answer, as a combination of attacks directed at his back insta-killed him. Dusky Cloud, who had been camping out by the knight's barracks, received a message: "Package delivered. Enjoy your killing. Send me however much you feel is appropriate." Chapter 318, The Implications of Dying. The thief Dusky Cloud was waiting by the knight's barracks in stealth mode. He wanted to be the first one to begin the process of killing Silvermoon. Just as he received the message, white light flashed and a knight in gaudy armor appeared inside this spawn point. Who else could the man be but Silvermoon? Silvermoon did not know what to think right now, but his actions and expression did not betray him losing his cool. The instant he respawned inside the knight's barracks, he started observing his surroundings very closely. Dusky Cloud felt vexed when he saw how Silvermoon was behaving. The target was in such proximity with him, yet it was hardly that easy to kill Silvermoon, much less wipe him down to level 10. This was going to be a protracted fight that would expend so much manpower and effort. Dusky Cloud suddenly regretted his actions. Was it worth disrupting so many players' gaming lives just to torment this person like so? At the same time, back in the jungle, Goofy was gawking at Svelte Dancer. "Why are you here, too?" Goofy had also used the same method Silvermoon had employed to get behind the tree, except Silvermoon made his move when the battalion had reached the copse of trees, while Goofy came in from outside beyond the copse. Unbeknown to Silvermoon, his most feared reaper of death, Goofy, was actually only separated to him by just 1 tree. By the time Sword Demon's bludgeon struck Silvermoon in the back of his head, Goofy had teleported himself right behind Silvermoon using Blink and ruthlessly stabbed him. At the same time, another person plunged a blade into Silvermoon, and that person was none other than Svelte Dancer. "I'm the only one who has movement speed that can keep up with everyone even while in stealth," Svelte Dancer replied. "So you've been keeping an eye on Silvermoon this whole time?" Goofy asked. Sword Demon shrugged his shoulders helplessly. "I've got no choice. I just don't have the movement speed." Silvermoon had sneakily left the main body by pretending to gather herbs from this tree, not knowing that a rogue in stealth was actually standing beside him and watching his every move all this while. Oathless Sword could also be credited for making this happen. The slower pace he set for the entire expedition for Guzio Shang to catch up to them actually allowed Svelte Dancer in stealth to close in on Silvermoon. The 3 left the copse and quickly joined the battalion. The other men of Young Master's elite that were hanging around the back of the pack naturally received the news about the successful assassination of Silvermoon. Svelte Dancer reached her hand out to Young Master Han. "Pay up." Young Master Han actually dismissively waved her off. "I have yet to get paid myself. I'll pass your share to you once we reach Linian City." Svelte Dancer did not badger him any further and merely left to find the Amethyst Rebirth ladies. Young Master Han announced to Goofy and Sword Demon, "Silvermoon has been sent back to the Knight's Barracks in Beishi City, and Dusky Cloud already caught sight of him. That concludes our current mission. Everyone may now applaud." The others rolled their eyes. "Record our contribution points," Young Master Han told Sword Demon. Sword Demon took out the booklet he was using to record Young Master's elite's contribution points and awarded everyone points accordingly. Royal God Call and War Without Wounds were rather disgruntled, as neither of them had active participation in this mission, only acquiring some sympathy points for their presence. As Goofy watched Sword Demon record the points, he asked Young Master Han, "It makes sense for Royal and Wounds to only get 10 points each, but why are you the one receiving the highest points when it was Sword Demon and I who have performed the mission?" 30 points for orchestration. What did you orchestrate? Did you really think we were merely waiting for Silver Moon to leave the battalion to strike? Young Master Han asked sarcastically. Wasn't that what happened? Don't you think Silver Moon needed a reason to leave first? Are you saying you caused Silver Moon to leave? Didn't he leave because he's afraid of those thieves in stealth being after him? Gu Fei asked. Absolutely. And you have a hand in that? I hired those men, young Master Han stated. Gu Fei was stunned. He turned to look at the other four and saw that each of them seemed to be aware of this particular information as they gazed at him sympathetically. Why didn't I know this? Gu Fei asked. Young Master Han did not bother to answer him. Instead, it was Brother Assist who patted Gu Fei. Everyone already discussed all this early in the morning, you just happened to be offline. With that, he turned to Sword Demon. Should we deduct 5 or 10 points from Miles for his failure to turn up for the meeting? Logically speaking, yes. But he wasn't online, so. Sword Demon was hesitant. No excuses. Deduct 10 points, young Master Han declared. Indeed, deduct 10 points off of him. War Without Wounds and Royal God Call immediately voiced their agreement. Whether his attendance mattered when he was online or otherwise was a similar argument as an offside call on the soccer field one. Seeing the majority in favor of it and Gu Fei himself not really minding it either way, Sword Demon went ahead and deducted 10 points off of him. Gu Fei was still pondering on this so-called orchestration. Since you're the one who hired those men, why didn't you say a word when I set out to stop them? What would you have done if I had killed them all? Didn't I tell you to go easy on them if they're after Silver Moon before you left? Young Master Han asked. How would I know if they're after Silver Moon or not? You asked them, of course. I did, but they didn't say a peep. Someone wanted to reveal it, but his comrades actually killed him before he could, Gu Fei said. Young Master Han was surprised by this revelation, painfully bemoaning to the others after a moment, how unfortunate. A true tragedy. Look at how professional that mercenary group is and look at yourselves. Each of you claims to be an expert, yet each of you will easily betray your comrades just for a little benefit. The treachery and lack of honor. Don't you guys feel the least bit ashamed of yourselves? You're insane. Everyone scoffed at young Master Han. In the end, it was still Brother Assist who patiently explained the entirety of their plan to Gu Fei. Since Silver Moon was aware that Dusky Cloud's team and another group were after him, he was sure to be paranoid as he journeyed on. Thus, young Master Han randomly hired a mercenary group in Beishi City to send some thieves to tail the battalion of men from Yunjuan City. Young Master Han had intended to use Gu Fei's well-known ability to counter stealth to inform youthful reflection about the men secretly following them and sow suspicion in Silver Moon, but Traversing Forces had ended up discovering the men first. Against their hidden stalkers that no one could detect, young Master Han was confident that Traversing Forces would seek Gu Fei's help. However, they were apparently holding such deep resentment toward their dependence on Gu Fei time and time again. Instead of seeking the help of Gu Fei, who was proven to have a counter for stealth, they sought the aid of Sakurazaka Muni's team of trappers. In any case, young Master Han had also prepared for such an eventuality. He only had to inform the men he had hired about the traps, and those hunters would fail to ambush them no matter how hard they tried, leaving Oathless Sword no other options but to look for Gu Fei. In the end, everything had gone even smoother than what he had planned. Sakurazaka Muni faked having a stomachache once he caught sight of Silver Moon, which allowed Gu Fei to pick up the reins. The other players whom Oathless Sword trusted accompanying Gu Fei fitted young Master Han's intentions perfectly as well. Instead, the unexpected high level of professionalism of the mercenary group young Master Han had hired was what almost ruined his plan. With those players keeping their mouth shut, they would naturally be beaten to death by Gu Fei and would subsequently result into Silver Moon not running away. It might even have the opposite effect and give Silver Moon a sense of security, instead. Fortunately, everything went back on track in accordance to young Master Han's plan. With those stalkers clearly escaping with their lives intact, Silver Moon's suspicions only grew to the point where he no longer wished to risk staying within the safety of the crowd. Opting to abandon his underlings once more, he ran off into the sunset. As such, young Master's elite had managed to achieve the two conditions necessary for Silver Moon to act. Silver Moon abandoned his men once more and was sent into the snapping maws of Dusky Cloud alone, essentially making it impossible for him to garner any external aid for his escape. In such a situation, Silvermoon would have no way of escaping with his men even if he wished to, as his men were no longer with him. Using those three guardians assigned to protect Todd as examples, they were quite possibly the most important three players that upheld the guild quest of traversing four seas, so the guild would simply not allow the three to leave. Of course, young Masters Elite would have to take care of Silvermoon in secret, so they made sure to keep Silvermoon in the dark about their involvement. This was a MMO, after all. There was no way to silence anyone with death alone. Despite his death, Silvermoon would still be able to tattle to Traversing Four Seas about young Masters Elite's role in his demise. Therefore, the men of young Masters Elite were very careful to not leave any evidence behind for Silvermoon to use as leverage. With how serious this quest was for Traversing Four Seas, using a feeble excuse of Goofy killing off Silvermoon because of the latter stepping on his foot would not float well with Oathless Sword and the rest. Thus, Silvermoon's assassination was smoothly carried out, with implications to boot. His killers could not be incriminated for their actions, while Silvermoon himself had no way of receiving any help at all. He might even have difficulties getting Traversing Four Seas to help him because he would then have to explain why he chose to sneak off like he did. Unpacking this can of worms might clue the guild's core members in on his intention to borrow their strength to fend off the 4,000-strong 10-guild alliance and his plan to use the ensuing confusion to escape from their clutches. All that was left now was the contest of patience between Dusky Cloud and Silvermoon, which was already something outside of young Master Han's considerations. As the mercenaries continued their way with the rest of the battalion, they incessantly sent messages of encouragement to Dusky Cloud. Looking forward to hear good news about your killing. Eventually, at 10:37 p.m., almost an hour after Silvermoon's first death that had sent him over to the Knights Barracks in Beishi City, Dusky Cloud sent them a glum reply. That bastard has actually been squatting in the spawn point for over an hour now. That motherfucker, that asshole, surely knows that we are looking to block him within, so he's looking to waste our time with this. You've got numbers on your side, what's there to be afraid of? Grind his time out slowly. Good luck. Young Masters Elite sent forth these words of encouragement to them. At this time, the continued advancement of the battalion from Yeonju-on City had come to a halt. What they saw before them was a jungle that spread as far as the eyes could see. Oathless Sword took at the map the system had given them for the quest and pored over it before finally announcing, Linian City is somewhere inside this jungle. Are you sure? Why has the road ended, then? Everyone was puzzled by this. Logically speaking, there should be one. I've never heard that the road will end abruptly like this. When Oathless Sword and his men arrived at Beishi City, they already learned that the next leg of their journey would be to Linian City. Naturally, they also took the time to find out more information about the said city. While they knew that this particular city was situated within a jungle, they were not aware that the road leading into Linian City would not be there. Do you remember the Oolong Mountain Range? Youthful Reflection asked. What about it? There were no crevasses over that mountain pass originally, but because of our guild quest, much of that road got eroded away. So what you mean to say is that there was a proper road here before, but it has temporarily disappeared thanks to our quest. Yup. Fuck. The system really loves creating these problems to waste our time. Everyone, enter the jungle. I doubt we'd lose our way since we have the damn coordinates for the city, anyway. Oathless Sword ordered. The truth was they had no choice but to enter the jungle. If they did not find Linian City, would they not have to spend over 3 hours making their way back to Beishi City just to log out? Chapter 319, A Suspicious Trap. The players from Yeonju-on City reorganized their formation once more before venturing into the jungle. Oathless Sword continued to take the lead, holding the map in hand as he directed everyone toward the indicated coordinates. But after taking several steps forward, he froze up, stared at the coordinates ahead, and compared them with the stated coordinates for Linian City's location. Oathless Sword rushed out of the jungle, checked the coordinates again, and ran back in to stare at the coordinates. Finally, he expressed his astonishment. This entire jungle is a Class 2 map. When the players heard of this, they were astonished as well, each of them starting to take note of the coordinates. Running to and fro to the jungle, much like what Oathless Sword just did, The fact that the jungle was a Class 2 map eventually spread among the players like wildfire. Class 2 map? Gufei was unfamiliar with this term. It is the name for places that have a separate set of coordinates from the map, Brother Assist explained. He felt that his explanation was still a little vague, so he cited examples. Most caves and the inside of houses have Class 2 maps, each of them having its coordinates. Even a house would have different coordinates. Gufei was positive that was untrue. Whenever he did bounty mission, he mostly found his targets indoors. Therefore, he was certain that the inside of houses had no unique coordinates. Well, small-sized houses are still reliant on the coordinates depicted on the world map, but there are slight variations in how things are depicted. For example, R100,100 is the coordinates for inside the house, while 100,100 is the coordinates for the house's rooftop. Have you not noticed this? Brother Assist asked. Oh. Gufei immediately understood. However, for this entire jungle to actually be a Class 2 map, just what sort of luck do we have to run into such a design? Brother Assist murmured. There was nothing really scary about a Class 2 map. In fact, this made it easier to identify the difference between the map coordinates more accurately. The problem was that in their current situation, the map Oathless Sword was using to lead the expedition was a Class 1 map, which the players had colloquially called as the world map. Since the coordinates within the jungle were of the Class 2 map, everyone could not help but suspect that this was the system making things difficult for them once more. Some quests were not challenging in terms of combat or intellect, so MMOs would often waste players' time by incorporating those quests with long-distance travels or tedious steps. Obviously, this part of the expedition the Unjuan City players were currently doing belonged in this category. Each of them griped incessantly, with some even expressing their skepticism about the jungle only being a Class 2 map for the quest, much like how the system had eroded the road back in the Oolong mountain range. Everyone, pipe down. All had retreated from the jungle by now, cursing loudly, so Oathless Sword had no choice but to step up and control the situation. His shout was only heard by the first dozen or so players, yet these men dutifully turned to spread the word until everyone knew of this order. The jungle outskirt where their expedition was gathered became quiet. Now that we're aware of our current situation, let me ask everyone, do any of you have friends in Linian City? Oathless Sword shouted. The best way for them to save time was to find a guide that would lead them to the city. The players began to discuss this among themselves, yet no one answered. The closest form of discussion that was relevant to the matter was when some players mentioned how they had friends who used to live in Linian City but later departed from it. Oathless Sword was very surprised by this turn of events, as he had never expected that out of this nearly 1,000 strong crowd, not one player actually had a friend in that city. Anyone at all, you will be well thanked for your aid. Oathless Sword did not give up. Originally hoping to play the friendship card, he now decided to offer up a reward. There was a saying that went, a brave soul will step up when a bountiful reward is present. Oathless Sword was not looking for a brave soul right now, though, but a local. Instead, he swept his gaze through the crowd once more and only found a sea of shaking heads. Oathless Sword was now blankly staring at Galeforce and Youthful Reflection. Neither of them seemed to have expected such an outcome, as well. Well, if that's the case, Oathless Sword continued, I guess we'll have to rely on ourselves to find the city. Do you all wish to begin our search for the city, or do you prefer heading back to Beishi City to rest up for the night and begin inquiring the next day? Let's search for it now. Everyone shouted. This was a no-brainer. Heading back to Beishi City now would take more than 3 hours of travel time. They would easily waste another 3 hours or more getting back here tomorrow. Anyone with half a head on his or her shoulders would naturally choose to push onward now than to come back here tomorrow. That settles it. Then we'll get a lock on the horizontal coordinates of Linian City from outside the jungle before we venture inward in a straight line. I'm sure we'll be able to find the city at this rate. Once Oathless Sword finished saying this, he began to move and align himself toward the horizontal coordinates for Linian City. The current plan was to arrive at Linian City by walking into the jungle in a straight line. They were all rather confident of their ability to keep their bearings straight. After all, they were searching for a city. Just the area of the coordinates itself occupied at least the entire symbol on their mini-map. With their destination being that large, These players were certain that they could locate the city even if they were to stray a little off to the side while inside the jungle. Thinking of this fact, all stopped their condemnations of the existence of this Class 2 map for the jungle as they courageously set forth into it once more. A jungle with the atypical Class 2 map category was truly a different breed. The trees were sturdy and densely tangled. These trees were also overgrown from the boundary to the very depths of the jungle. The battalion advanced in the same formation as before. Traversing forces took the front, while the mercenaries followed closely behind. Young Master's elite was once more trailing at the back, and the Amethyst Rebirth ladies were not too far away. Sakura Zakamuni and the Great Hunting were naturally lingering near the ladies. Sakura Zakamuni was currently walking alongside Vast Lushness as he said to her, "It's really easy to put up traps in places like this. No need to even dig a hole, just toss a bunch of loose leaves, cover up the trap with more detritus, and no one will be able to detect it." As he said this, a scream was heard coming from the front of the pack. That scream sounded exceptionally vivid in this remote jungle. When those at the back asked what had happened, the report from the front that reached them was, "Someone stepped on a trap." Their hearts trembled as they each began checking the area beneath their feet, which thereby led to further questions. Did the person accidentally step on the trap that someone has forgotten to dismantle? Is the trap intentionally placed? There was no answer at the moment. Eventually, Oathless Sword called for the self-proclaimed #1 trap expert Sakura Zakamuni to save that man. Sakura Zakamuni quickly made a beeline for the man. "Anyone started the timer yet?" Just that first question Sakura Zakamuni asked when he arrived already showed the difference between an expert and a layman. Not one man from Traversing Forces had thought of counting how long a trap would last the instant someone stepped on it, causing all of them to stew in their embarrassment. "Let's start it now, then," Sakura Zakamuni said to the men around him as he casually picked up a hefty stick off the ground and dug at the detritus around the trapped man's foot. There was a thick layer of leaves littering the jungle floor, so their feet might accidentally land in a small hole on the ground if they were not careful. This was precisely why Sakura Zakamuni had told Vast Lushness about how suitable this place was for laying traps. There was a metallic shine from the jaws of the trap that had snared the man's foot. Sakura Zakamuni inspected it left and right while the surrounding men watched with bated breath for him to come to some earth-shaking conclusion. "It's a hunter's trap," Sakura Zakamuni announced. "Fuck!" Everyone exclaimed in unison. Hunter was currently the only job class that could set up traps like this, so it was rather obvious which job class was responsible for this. "But I've never seen this sort," Sakura Zakamuni continued. "What do you mean?" Oathless Sword, who had been standing beside him all this time, asked. "It's a lot more intricate. It probably means that the level of this trap is higher than what I'm used to." Sakura Zakamuni lifted his head to look at the trapped player. "Did you take any damage or are you just unable to move?" The man said that he was just rendered immobile. Sakura Zakamuni muttered, "So a higher level trap doesn't seem to do any damage. I guess there isn't much point raising this skills level." The man was mildly annoyed by this, feeling as though Sakura Zakamuni had used him as a guinea pig. Sakura Zakamuni's gaze began to turn toward another direction. As everyone's eyes followed his, he hurriedly shouted, "Don't stop the timer." All of them hastily returned their gazes on the man's right foot. The man started feeling uneasy with many looking at his trapped foot. Sakura Zakamuni took that stick of his over to another side and began poking around. Soon, he lifted the stick and a trap was slightly exposed on the other end of it. "There's another one." Oathless Sword came over, his brows knitted. "Timer," Sakura Zakamuni said to him. "Where's the timer?" Although Oathless Sword came over, the rest were still busy staring at the trapped man's leg. This might not be all. Sakura Zakamuni proceeded to toss the trap aside as his stick continued to poke and prod with everyone following him closely. Suddenly, a pained shout came from behind him, causing the surrounding players to leap to their feet in surprise. Even Sakura Zakamuni jumped at this. He turned to look backward, only to angrily chide the person. "Are you an idiot? Didn't you see me toss that trap over there? Why did you step on it? Isn't the trap dismantled?" That man glumly asked. "Bro, is there even a dismantle skill yet?" Sakura Zakamuni retorted. The man could only feel ashamed over his lack of gaming knowledge, as Sakura Zakamuni asked, "Did you time it this time?" All froze up as they once more felt embarrassed at their failure to do so. Act like professionals, Sakurazaka Muni criticized. Everyone could only keep mum and endure his censure. There was no way around this. Trappers were already in the minority, and few of them were skilled. While Sakurazaka Muni proclaimed himself as the #1 trap expert in Yunjuan City, no one knew who the #2 was. It even felt as though no one was competing with him for the top spot, since any high-level archer chose to advance to a sharpshooter job class. Instead, Sakurazaka Muni continued to prod and soon managed to pick out another trap. His eyes turned solemn as he said, "It's very unlikely for 3 men to forget their traps here. These traps are clearly placed here intentionally. Perhaps, they're even targeting us. Who would do such a thing? Are they players or NPCs?" Youthful reflection asked. Haha, it's over. The man who had originally fallen for the trap is finally free from it. A minute and 1 second. Before Sakurazaka Muni could ask, the person counting the time had blurted this out. Adding the time we have missed out earlier, it lasted at least over a minute and 10 seconds. That's pretty impressive. Sakurazaka Muni exclaimed. Furthermore, these are clearly placed by players. If they were NPCs, they would long since reveal themselves, Sakurazaka Muni said as he looked at the people around him. Chapter 320, Web of Traps. Sakurazaka Muni continued to poke through the leaves littering the jungle floor as he said to Oathless Sword, "If this person is an expert, he won't just place the traps haphazardly. Those we've found on the jungle floor beneath the detritus could have been placed to draw our attention. Perhaps, there is an even more powerful trap waiting for us deeper in the jungle." What would be an even more powerful trap? Oathless Sword nervously asked. "Hunting trap that lasts for even longer," Sakurazaka Muni answered. Oathless Sword had the strongest urge to slap this man to death. "Everyone, take care of where you're stepping to." Oathless Sword turned back to remind the others. There was really no need for him to say that, as everyone had started watching where they placed their feet the moment they heard that first man's scream when that trap was triggered. "Can we continue onward like this?" Oathless Sword asked Sakurazaka Muni. "The trap itself doesn't deal damage," Sakurazaka Muni answered, "its only use is to render a target immobile. You've seen that their hunting trap's duration can last for over a minute. The current use it has in combat is to complement it with a ranged attack after. If we continue to rush onward without fully grasping our current situation, we may be slowly eaten alive. Can't we just find all the traps first?" Oathless Sword was staring at the stick Sakurazaka Muni was holding. "Normally, you would be right, but don't forget that traps don't have a mind of their own unlike us, humans. A real trap expert won't simply set a trap down and wait for the prey to stumble on it. Not only can a trap limit a person's movement when triggered, it can also be a means to contain a person when not triggered. By choosing to manually search for the traps, our actions are already being controlled by the trappers, so they most likely have something planned against us." "I know that." Oathless Sword sighed deeply. Sakurazaka Muni was really such a nag. Even if he did not know much about traps, he at least understood the logic behind the use of traps. "What I'm trying to say is that the solution to our current situation is not uncovering the many traps they've set up but finding out how many people are out there to get us." Sakurazaka Muni's voice diminished in volume as he spoke. He then swept his solemn gaze around him once more. The rustling sound of leaves in the jungle complemented Sakurazaka Muni's tone, and everyone involuntarily felt a shiver down their spines as they too began to look around in hopes of knowing just how many people were out there lying in wait for them. "Let's stop our progress for now. Call the other leaders together and discuss our next step," Oathless Sword declared. The battalion had already come to a halt by now. All the players were patiently waiting for news from the front as they discussed the matter in their respective groups. Suddenly, Gufei turned back and shouted, "Someone's here." "Who?" Gufei's shout was not just heard by young Master's elite but also by Oathless Sword and his men despite them being in front of the entire battalion. Gufei fixed his gaze on the direction that they had just passed through. "There's definitely someone there just now. Is it a player or a NPC?" Brother Assist asked. "It's definitely a player. NPCs don't have killing intent," Gufei replied. "Killing intent?" Everyone was curiously staring at Gufei now. "I'll go take a look." Gufei pulled out his sword and carefully headed in the general direction where he felt the killing intent. It was only a fleeting sensation, as the other party might have only looked at him transiently, Yet the experienced fighter Gufei was still able to feel it. While he could not pinpoint where exactly this person was, he could guarantee that someone was really standing there. "I'll accompany you." Sword Demon pulled out his dagger, entered stealth, and carefully followed behind Gufei. All had their eyes fixed on them as they departed. Oathless Sword and his men finally made their way over moments later, asking upon arrival, "What happened?" A player pointed to Gufei's figure among the trees. He said, "There's someone behind us." "Someone, a player or a NPC?" Youthful Reflection suddenly asked. All had a strange expression on their faces. Young Master Han sighed. "The heck? Why is everyone asking the same question?" Youthful Reflection was not amused by this. Young Master Han laughed. "Sorry, I'm not disparaging you specifically." As Youthful Reflection was slightly softening to young Master Han's comment, the latter continued, "It's everyone else including you." Everyone, including Youthful Reflection, was absolutely furious by this. "Careful!" Gufei's shout was heard by all the players and they saw him nimbly leap backward as his moonlit nightfalls speedily stabbed downward. The crisp sound of metal clashing together rang about, followed by something shining near his foot. They then saw Gufei land on his feet and said aloud in all seriousness, "There's the trap here." Sakura Sakamuni hurried over and began to examine the activated trap by Gufei's foot. The trap's craftsmanship was far more complex than what they had found before, and it even had a faint metallic shine to it. The sharp jaws that would have dug into the flesh of the trap target glistened. Everyone could not help but shiver at the sight of this. Sword Demon cancelled his stealth state beside him. Gufei's warning just then had been for his sake. Even Gufei's heart was palpitating at the moment. This trap is really abnormal. It can actually spring out and chase after its target. Everyone stared at Gufei with an expression as though they were looking at a monster. Gufei had clearly stepped on that trap mere moments ago, yet he was able to almost instantly jerk his foot out of harm's way. Since this particular trap can actually spring from the ground and chase after its target for a short distance, Gufei had no choice but to stab his sword down in that same instant to stop it. It was evident who the truly anomaly here was. "That's too much, drunk bro." To actually dodge that. Even Sakura Sakamuni was momentarily distracted from studying the beloved trap before him. Gufei did not react to his praise and merely peered through the depths of the jungle. "I'm afraid that there are more." Oathless Swordsmen had come over by now, and Sakura Sakamuni's question was still the same. "Have you counted the time?" "Counted the time for what?" "How long the trap lasts, of course." Sakura Sakamuni replied matter-of-factly. "Didn't it miss 1,000 miles drunk?" "Yeah, but it still got triggered." "Once the trap is sprung, it will only disappear when the effect ends, so its duration can still be timed." "You guys really have to work on your knowledge about traps." Sakura Sakamuni was visibly distressed by this. Who would have thought that there would come a day when the great Traversing Four Seas guild leader Ruthless Sword would be blamed to the point of speechless? However, this was also when he realized something. "We've clearly seen this trap get triggered together, so why is this twerp still putting the blame on others? Isn't he just taking this chance to twist the subject and stir trouble?" "How detestable." "This trap's even more incredible than the last," Sakura Sakamuni said. "And if that springing motion drunk bro described is true, then that means that this skill has a higher proficiency, clearly showing us how fearsome the force behind its triggering motion." "What about your trap? What is the speed your trap can go?" Oathless Sword suddenly asked. Sakura Sakamuni flashed him a wry smile. "Mine is nowhere near this speed. I lost a level when I was at level 40. Before level 40, a new skill could be acquired with every 6 levels. Namely level 12, level 18, and so on. These levels were what players now called skill level. Whenever players lost their level upon death, the greatest fear they had was to fall below the skill level. That was because the skill itself would disappear once the player dropped below the corresponding threshold. When a player grinded back to that lost level, he or she would need to learn the skill and grind its proficiency from scratch. Losing a skill level was therefore far more frightening than just losing a level. "From the way it looks, we've already been surrounded." After examining the trap, Sakura Sakamuni stood up and said this. Anyone with half the brain could come to that conclusion. The direction Gufei had gone to was where their expedition had just passed through. It was clear that this trap had been placed only after they left. Perhaps, What Gufei had sensed was the parting glance of the enemy after placing the trap. Undoubtedly, this trap was definitely targeting them. Is it a player or NPC? Youthful Reflection was still struggling with this question. It's a player, Gufei answered him confidently. How do you know? Although someone already told him the answer, he still insisted on having proof, especially since the person claiming this was Gufei. Gufei shrugged his shoulders and said, I saw him. He figured it was not good to mention killing intent. If he kept going on about it, these players might start treating him in the same way the students in his school treated him whenever he claimed that he knew Kung Fu. You saw him? How are you able to differentiate a player from an NPC with just one glance? There are many NPCs in a city, how do they look any different from any player? Hey, wait. Where do you think you're going? I'm not done. Gufei teleported himself away from Youthful Reflection using Blink once the latter started talking his head off. What's the update? The 3 Traversing 4C's core members and the mercenary group leaders were gathered now. The men I sent to scout our flanks have also discovered traps. We are now ensnared and surrounded within a web of traps. Sakurazaka Muni shared the situation to everyone present. The great huntingsmen were in charge of searching for traps. Oathless Sword was glad that this group of extremely skeevy outliers he had hired came to be of use in such a scenario. Can't we just remove these traps? Someone asked. No. Oathless Sword moved to stop Sakurazaka Muni before he began his long-winded speech about the trap containment theory. Why? The asker was adamant to find out the reason behind this, though, so Sakurazaka Muni once more haughtily explained his theory in great detail. Oathless Sword tried his best to control himself as he swept his glowering gaze over all those present, wishing to say a few words to emphasize just how serious a predicament they were now in. However, after making a full round, he began to feel that something was off. Carefully looking around the mercenary leaders gathered around him, he confirmed his suspicions as he turned his gaze to Youthful Reflection. Where's Silver Moon? This meeting was supposed to include every mercenary leader and each core member of Traversing 4Cs. Everyone was present except for Silver Moon. Youthful Reflection called out Silver Moon on the party channel. He too had only just realized that someone was not present. It could be said that Silver Moon's plan to conceal his existence was fairly effective, only when such a unique situation cropped up that people realized about his disappearance. Where is that guy? Oathless Sword wondered aloud as he prepared to send Silver Moon a private message. He left, someone suddenly answered.